Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for coming in. I know based on some of the meetups last night, this is kind of early for some of us in the room. Really appreciate the attendance. I'd like to start off with introductions, and then we're going to jump into some Q&A. We'd like to open it up to the audience at the end of the session. I'm Maria Claudio. I'm Client Solutions Manager at Facebook. I've been with the company a little over 3 years now. Have worked in our New York office, our headquarters in Menlo Park, and now I'm based in LA. I specialize in performance marketing, as does everyone on this panel. I will hand it over to Alex Tshering, Jason Kryski, Markella Chava, and Niket Shaw to introduce themselves as well, and then we'll kick it off.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Alex Tshering. I don't work at Facebook. I work for myself as a digital marketing consultant. Mostly what I do is work with companies and teach them how to build for scale on Facebook. Mostly work with startups and companies that have established marketing teams that are looking to take branding dollars and put it more towards a direct response angle. Nice to meet y'all.
Hi everybody, I'm Jason Kryski, co-founder of Strawhouse. We're a performance agency that works primarily with venture capital and private equity-backed companies to build out direct response performance-based campaigns for them.
Hey, I'm Markella Chava, also from Facebook, and I've been working on the direct response side of things probably the last 3 years or so. Been at Facebook for about 5, and happy to be here and definitely ask us anything during or after.
My name is Niket Shaw, also at Facebook. Been there also around 5 years. Kind of focused a lot on performance marketing over the last 3 to 4 years as well. We built up an awesome team, so looking forward to the discussion.
Awesome, guys. So let's just jump right into it. I have a question directed to Mark and Niket. So given Facebook's mission to make the world more open and connected, and it's such a personalized platform, that's something at the end of the day where we differentiate ourselves against any other platform out there. How does Facebook view performance advertisers in the space?
Yeah, maybe I'll touch on advertising in general, and then you can keep going on that. Because Facebook is such a personal platform, it's a platform that people have selected, the friends and family that they want to interact with, pages and brands that they want to connect with. That advertising in itself has to be additive to that experience, which is a little bit unique in terms of when we think about marketing in general. Think about user experience and customer interaction on any other marketing platform, whether it be television, out of home, print. When you look at the ad that the user's seeing, if it's a negative ad, they don't actually, relate that back to the medium that they're seeing it on. Versus on Facebook, they do. Because it's so personal, they think, okay, that advertising was selected by Facebook for me specifically, and it has to be additive to the experience that I have on the platform. And their experience is something that we measure and take really highly in terms of how we work with advertisers.
Yeah, and to that point, when people are coming to Facebook for the first time and maybe they've done a lot of other performance marketing on other channels, we typically kind of have a harder time making the existing advertising work well from a Facebook policy perspective. But there's sort of this trade-off there because of what Niket's saying. We have to be really cautious about the type of content that's out there if you compare it to a lot of different native ad or display partners. But there's this trade-off in terms of quality as well. The quality of our traffic can often be much, much higher than these other platforms, and you don't necessarily have to be as aggressive to really benefit from what the platform has to offer. And we're going to go into later on, I think, some of the modeling that we do kind of behind the scenes that really can get your advertising in front of the right people without having to take as much of a clickbait type approach.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, show of hands, who in this room has had account disables, ad disapprovals? I thought I'd see more, but that's good. Can we touch a little more on what areas of policy we want to kind of avoid, what works and what doesn't, just from experience? And Jason, Alex, I would love your opinion on this as well.
So obviously staying away from hyper-personalized creative, while still making people feel familiar with it. So doing the obvious things like avoiding words like you and your, and taking that kind of approach where you're not calling out specific attributes of the user, but you're making the kind of overall gestalt of the creative to feel very personal to them, because you know who you're targeting. So it's a matter of, I think, building up a personalized creative that doesn't start to make the user feel weird in some way. I mean, that's kind of a general statement.
Right. So for the most part, I run a lot of white hat, and most of my clients are very white hat. So we use a lot of stock photos. We buy photos from stock images. You'll be surprised that you can actually get that stuff to work. Landing pages are not fake news articles. They're branded with the company's brand. Even if it's a pre-sale page, we go less link baity, very direct on what exactly the product is, and straightforward, and really utilize the various tools that Facebook has. Place the pixels, retarget them, and really get them into your user funnel, and use multiple touch points to really get that user engaged. So instead of clickbaiting and trying to get that conversion right out of the gate, now you're being a little bit more savvy of a marketer, and you're using multiple steps in a funnel and trying to get that user through and trying to get them engaged with your product and moving them further down the line and touching with them.
Yeah, at a high level, I think also one of the things to keep in mind is that what happens on Facebook and a lot of the challenges that most people face is that they think the products that they're advertising are not actually allowed on the platform, which isn't actually the case. It's usually about how it's being marketed versus what's being marketed. And I think if you look at it from ensuring that the user experience on the platform is consistent in the sense of like what they're clicking on the platform and going off to your site matches, and there's actually, a user's going to see that, okay, I'm interested in clicking on this specific offer. I go to the landing page. There is nothing misleading about the way it's being presented to me. It's nothing misleading about the way it's sold to me. From there, they go and have a positive experience. And I think the disconnect is when we lose that, and we kind of, there's different steps in between that just misleads the user. I think that's where policy kind of wants to ensure that we keep our users happy.
Continuity between the ad and the landing pages is really key. Yeah. Not only does it produce higher conversion numbers, but it satisfies a lot of policy requirements.
Yeah, and how much video have you guys been doing recently?
A ton. Video is obviously huge on the platform. We made a bet on video early on when video was released, and the return, the ROI that we see on video is much higher than what we see on typical imagery. And you can do things like we use stock video. You don't have to be producing your own content. It's just leveraging video in some way can produce pretty dramatically better results.
Right. Same here. A lot of my clients are e-commerce, and a video that really shows the benefits of the product that can be viewed in silence, still with subtitles, stuff like that. Heavy engagement. For the most part, if someone's viewed the video for longer than 15 or 30 seconds, the ability to retarget that person and hit those people again with a different type of message, but still trying to move them further down the funnel. We've seen great returns and really, really good conversion rates with that. Video is a great place to really double down. You can do shocking videos with some subtitles, or you can do like product-based videos. There's a lot of different things we do. One of my clients has a video on 5 steps to making your resume better. And then that engagement with their page has really just increased how much traffic is hitting their homepage, and then moving that person to a final sale has been a lot easier. So that's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, and I bring it up just because we've seen in a lot of cases the initial click rate with video can sometimes decrease, so people see that frontline metric and get a little scared. But then later on, if they're looking at the conversion rate, we've seen it in some cases double or even more. And those type of signals all get fed back into our ad system. So we're looking at, for every distinct ad you put in the system, what's happening down the line. Are people responding to that? And if they are, then our models incorporate that feedback, and you end up getting cheaper pricing than other people, just as virtue of things like that, the conversion rate. And I think that's really why the increased conversion rate is why video pricing ends up being so much cheaper than other ad types.
To build on that a little bit, so we see lots of advertisers facing issues with new ads and scaling inefficiencies. So say video is a win on the platform. How can we advise advertisers to figure out what the cause of this inefficiency is with scale and how to get them to scale? And I'd like Mark to start off with this, and then I'd love Jason and Alex's kind of take from actually being on the front lines and running the campaigns.
Yeah, I think the first thing that when we're working with new advertisers, we like to really help them understand all the different components that go into the auction system, and that might be a good kind of place to kick this off before sending it over. But basically what happens is we'll talk to a lot of people, and they're worried about the competition between advertisers similar to them. So if you're in the financial services space, they're worrying what are other financial services advertisers doing, and it really doesn't matter that much because the competition is on a per person basis. So if you open up your phone right now and you refresh it, on average, there's between 10,000 and 20,000 different advertisers competing for you in that moment. And to really excel, it helps to understand what are all the different factors that are going into that almost instantaneous decision. So the first layer is just, of all those 20,000 advertisers, you fell in their target for whatever reason. It could have been they were targeting very broadly or they were targeting more specifically, but you're in that pool. And it's not just a matter of, okay, whoever's bidding the highest is who's going to get shown to you, because we want to have this more engaging ad experience almost. It's often more a function of, do we think based on this past person's behavior, are they going to click and convert on this ad? So everybody's individual history is stored up there. If Alex is more into mobile ads or gaming ads, he's more likely to see that type of content. And if I traditionally have converted off-site more, that's more likely than not what I'm going to see. I mean, this can change if people are bidding extremely high and it jumps over, but all these factors are going into play. So it's more a matter of, okay, these models are happening, and how do we help advertisers figure out how to best sort of train our models to work effectively for them. And it really just becomes this probability game where you want to be, for whatever objective you're choosing, if you have a website conversion objective, you want to be sending back as much feedback to Facebook and as much conversions per ad as possible, so we can start making those decisions better.
And roughly how many conversions a day are you looking to calibrate the model properly?
Yeah, you want to, I guess the short answer is you want about 10 a day per ad set. But the longer answer is you want to be getting information and feedback back to us as quickly as possible, because we're trying to basically extrapolate from early information how we think this ad is going to perform hours down the line or days down the line. So if you get this great performance at first, then we're like, oh, this ad's amazing, and start kind of almost giving you a discount relative to other people on the platform. And there's other factors as well. So obviously there's the conversion rate factor, which is how good is your landing page experience, where you're placing the pixel, the amount of information you're sending back. But then there's also the creative factor, which goes into it too. Like if people are responding on that front line, if it's a video, they're viewing it a lot, they're clicking a lot, we take that into account, and that's another piece of information that can help your bid quite a bit. So just kind of like thinking about all these things in tandem, and when something's going wrong or not delivering, just learning how to isolate which piece it is.
Right. And so for building for scale, if you're trying to spend a lot of money, taking into consideration what Mark's kind of just touched on, pro tip, if you work with optimizing to earlier funnel metrics, placing that funnel earlier, that pixel earlier in the funnel, Facebook's going to read that signal a lot earlier. So if you have an earlier place, like collection of the email address where you fire a pixel there, and you start optimizing to that metric instead, Facebook's going to see that conversion value as a higher point. And so Facebook's going to deem it as a hyper successful ad. You'll get cheaper costs, and then you'll get more conversions, giving that signal a lot more value for Facebook to optimize to. So we do a lot of that earlier funnel pixel placements to optimize, which is great for getting cheap traffic. And then on the other end of it, it's if we're trying to really build for scale, it's always A/B testing, figure out your control, find an image and a body copy that's working. And what we found with my team is that instead of really raising the bids or raising the ad set budgets, what we instead do is clone the ad and raise the ad set budget. What we find is a lot of times if you start raising ad set budgets at a heavy rate, you can't hold the conversion rate. And when we duplicate and clone an ad, we have a lot more stability or traction. It ends up actually repeating the performance a lot better in line with instead of what we see if we just pump up ad set budgets.
Yeah, we see exactly the same thing. We do modify ad set budgets, but we don't do it any more than maybe like 20% of the actual ad set budget. So you're not dramatically increasing that budget and running into the challenges that Alex talking about. And I would just kind of echo the optimization of a higher pixel or a higher funnel goal, and then making sure that like once you have enough data and you start moving that funnel goal deeper into your funnel to get to the real optimization of what you're trying to occur. So early on, you can optimize for link clicks, and you can start moving down the funnel to the point where then you start optimizing for website conversions if that's your goal, and then bidding appropriately. And we have a system where we bid differently at different stages in the funnel, depending on the goal that we're optimizing for.
Could you guys speak a little about the order in which you test things generally, or if there is kind of a framework for that in your own?
Sure, 100%. So I started with custom audiences and build lookalike off of it always. I always try to get relevant audiences, so I build those lookalike audiences based off of that. And from there, I think my first sticking point with my media buyers is always image-based. Image tends to be the place that really drives that click-through rate. Finding an image that works, usually test about 3 images, finding a control image, and then do variations of that image and build off of that. And then the next probably high value point is the messaging and the body copy. So short form copy versus long form copy, really pushing that copy to drive a high quality user. And that's kind of, for the most part, that's the most of what I test. The headline, the link, not so much. Sometimes we'll test those call to action buttons as well. But for the most part, it's always going to be body copy, image, and audience related. And that's really where I spend most of my time to really pinpoint that audience, pinpoint that designation, and build the larger audiences around that kind of traffic.
Yeah, and we do much the same. We always start with lookalike based data if we have that, we can get access to that. Or model out something similar. But all of our campaigns start with the kind of audience that we feel that the product or offering is going to resonate with. We'll come up with 3 or 4 different audiences, and then we'll tailor messages that speak to those audiences, and making that creative feel very personalized. Like Alex said, image, video is obviously the number one thing that you're going to want to be able to do to drive higher click-through rates. And then we find, headline, the specificity of the different language in the headline can make a significant impact as to, a dramatic raise in CTR, just changing the right couple words to resonate with that audience properly.
Awesome. Just to build on kind of more of the technical aspects, we talked about the auction a little bit. Volatility, I know, is a big problem for affiliate marketers across the board. Is it good to change bids? Do we want to keep them constant? Would love for everyone to kind of take a stab at this, just because there's a lot of information that we have on our internal help site, but then there's testing that we do that proves that wrong. So I kind of just would love to get everyone's opinion on how you run successful campaigns throughout the day to kind of mitigate that volatility aspect.
We obviously day part. That's something that everybody should be doing, and this should be specified that you're not starting and stopping an ad. You're using a system that actually allows you to day part when the auction, or else you don't see the negative results from starting and stopping an ad.
Yeah, and the volatility piece, a lot of it has to come down to how we handle pacing on our end, and it's a bit different from Google. So with Google's pacing, if you have some budget and some ads running, they essentially are, it's a little bit more sophisticated, but they're running like a coin flip to decide when to enter you into auctions or not, just so that your budget doesn't get exhausted too quickly. With us, we try to estimate throughout a 24-hour period, or if you're running longer time periods throughout, let's say, a week-long period, how many auctions are going to exist based on similar ads in the past, and what those likely price points will be. And then we'll be like, okay, like we think at these different points of the day, we can probably win these auctions for you more cheaply, so we're not going to enter you into auctions until that point. And sometimes we're wrong, and that's when these big spikes can occur. But the idea of the system is we want you to be able to win the cheapest auctions first, and given whatever your budget is, without entering you in the more higher priced ones.
For consistency these days, we really take advantage of Facebook Auto Bidder. We love manual bid because you can really drive down prices, but a lot of times that's where the inconsistency lies. So instead of that, if we can get a campaign at scale, we run at auto bid just for consistency's sake. almost guaranteeing you're going to be able to spend your budgets and spend exactly what you want to spend if you're running on it.
Yeah, people I know run into a lot of challenges when they see spikes when they initially start an ad, and if you have a larger budget that you set it to, you'll see some kind of like burst spending. And so a way to like resolve that is to just start the ad at a lower traffic time of day.
Yeah, the system's designed and built around a way that's going to optimize to what your business goals are and business objectives are. So when you think about it in that sense, there's a lot of people that are saying, I'm setting my daily budget to $5,000 a day, $10,000 a day, and it won't spend that much. And it's purposely done because, like to Mark's point, in terms of we want to make sure that you get the best quality traffic, the best quality conversions on your ads. That's what's important to us. So you can use that as a signal to say, okay, well, maybe it's a relevancy thing. Maybe the ad creative's not as good as it should be. Maybe I'm bidding too low for the objective that I'm trying to accomplish, and you kind of relook at CPAs and what's important to your business and go from there.
Yeah, Niket, you just talked about kind of positive, negative feedback. How can advertisers take these metrics through relevant score or whatnot to maybe test creative, maybe not necessarily use it as a metric to figure out bids and whatnot? So I'd love to kind of continue there.
The system's primarily, again, like designed around a way that provides the most meaningful and positive experience for the people that are using the platform, Facebook. So when you think about testing creative, when we look at how it is that we think about what kind of marketing materials we want to create for the platform, the better engaging that content is, the better experience that they have from going from the Facebook site to the landing page that you're driving them to. All that stuff really it matters, and I think that's more important than at least in the first couple of days in terms of testing, more so than looking at like extremely cheap clicks or looking at extremely cheap CPAs. That stuff will come over time, and our system's always going to do the best that it can do to provide you the most value. So I think Mark talked a lot about in terms of how our system scales and grows, and I think that's a big part of it.
Awesome. So many advertisers in this room are highly sophisticated and understand this kind of test, iterate, or deprecate approach. And if you aren't doing it, we highly recommend it. I would love for Alex and Jason and then Mark to kind of bring it home of why this approach works and how our Facebook models kind of take into this like very advanced testing and why it's so important.
Yeah, you never really know. It's interesting, even with the amount of experience and the scale of campaigns and breadth of campaigns that we run, we're always surprised when we think that something's going to work really well as far as creative goes, and then it doesn't, and then we test something that we didn't really think was going to be great, and it does exceptionally well. So you're always learning things about your audience, and you don't learn that without testing a tremendous amount. Even when we have things that are exceptionally successful that are running at scale, we're always running a ton of creative and tests in the background. I'd say for a campaign, we're always running like maybe 5 to 10 tests concurrently at the same time, even when there's something running successfully, so we can start being able to slot that in to be able to ramp up and can scale further.
Right. When I originally started in the affiliate marketing game, like in 2009, 2008, there wasn't a lot of testing going on. We were just throwing up ads, a lot of pictures of Oprah and really trying to make that stuff work. As we've kind of gone on and learned more about the industry and learn about testing and learning how significant data is, it's all about really, really honing in on what that control is and really building off of that. So even if you have a winner like Jason just touched on, it's always testing. And, we ideate and throw crazy ideas at the wall, obviously mostly compliance stuff, but we just try to really, really, really always try to push the limit and push the envelope with testing, because if you're not testing, ads get stagnant and you're just going to end up losing traction on your campaigns. And if you have a company or a client that you're working for, if you do that, obviously you're going to end up losing the business. Facebook's just recently released the A/B testing tool, which is something that we've had access to in the past, but that tool is great because what it ends up doing is it actually gives you the ability to clean A/B test in Facebook. It takes something like an audience that you have and it segments it in half, and then you can really run 2 ads that are similar with one variable that's different, a pure A/B split test, and see if you can actually get a gauge on whether or not this ad or this component of the ad is actually going to outperform or is winning comparatively.
Yeah, having statistically significant tests too. So knowing that, based on the establishing a p-value, knowing what kind of based on how many conversions you're driving, how much traffic and how many, conversions you need to see to be able to have a good gauge as to whether or not something's good. If you've got 3 conversions over here and 2 conversions over here, this is not the winner. So it's taking some time and putting some thought behind the budgets and the testing mechanism.
Yeah, and a fun experiment to run, which sort of really drives home the point of how probabilistic the system really is you can, if you sometimes make one ad set and just duplicate the exact same thing 3 times in different ad IDs underneath it with literally nothing unchanged, you'll see wildly different performance often between the 3, which is a very surprising result when you first see it, but then you realize that it's all based on just feedback of those individual IDs. So if one of them happened to get better performance in the first hour or something, then Facebook thinks that ad is amazing and just keeps running. So it's really hard to have a nice testing framework within a system like that, because imagine if you had done that same thing but 3 different creatives and one wildly outperformed. You'd be like, oh, this creative's amazing, but it could have just been random. So you really need a rigorous testing framework like you're describing.
Yeah, and don't clone campaigns, clone the ad sets, or else it'll dedupe and you'll get it.
Yeah, and I think for all the nerds in the room, we call it AA testing or AAA testing in this example.
Just to touch on something too, most of my optimization is taking place external of Facebook. So I'll download the data from Facebook, and I build pivot tables in Excel, and then I tie all that data together. So now I can actually just see what the performance of the individual component of an ad is too. So if I have like 6 ads that are running the same image, but at the same time they're running 5 different body copies, I could still see what the performance of that image is overall, and I can get a really good CTR gauge on that. So really working outside of Facebook, but utilizing the tools within Facebook is most of how the optimization works on our end.
Awesome. So just throwing out a random question, what's the most successful campaign you guys have ever run on Facebook? And I'm going to ask Mark and Niket as well, because we're encouraged to test our platforms to better serve you guys as advertisers. Alex, start with you.
Well, it depends on what I view as success. I think that when I was starting out in affiliate marketing in like 2009, this is like my first huge win. I got an offer from a network that was a free Quiznos sandwich as a paper print. So anytime someone pushed print on the coupon, I got a payout on it. And the affiliate network I was working with decided to give me all the budget for it. So it was on Facebook, right-hand rail ad, like 2009, and I ran it. First time spending about like $1,000 a day, and it really kind of like set me forward in my path in digital marketing period, and that was pretty awesome.
I'd say recently the most scale that we achieved on a campaign was we have a nutraceutical client who was having some policy challenges. We rebuilt their landing pages and reworked their creative, and we were able to scale. That was a probiotic supplement, up into the realm where we're spending 8 figures a quarter, which was really pretty. As much as you think that there is scale on Facebook, you don't really have as much appreciation until you actually see it, and you're like, oh my, sometimes it's kind of staggering to see what's able to be achieved. So you keep pushing and keep pushing forward and having the right size audience, and then expanding that audience so you're starting to, you're not necessarily optimizing for your return, but you're optimizing for breadth and pulling people in that aren't maybe exactly the right person, but they can be. You can use your your copy on your landing page to start to kind of persuade people and really bring in additional customers that might not have been customers before.
My aunt got into the hand-blown glass Christmas ornament game a while ago. She has like a factory in Poland now. It's pretty crazy. But so she was doing fine from a sales perspective, but when we started I helped her out with some Facebook stuff. And the order size it got to these astronomical levels where people were buying like $1,000 worth of Christmas ornaments and stuff like this. And we were just kind of trying to model after the people who are already doing that with lookalikes, and pretty basic stuff. And it just worked phenomenally well compared to other stuff she'd been doing.
Yeah, most successful thing I've run, I think, was about a year ago, kind of piggybacking on Facebook rolling out autoplay on video in mobile. And I think just jumping onto that, like Jason was saying, just even using stock video. I was driving traffic offsite for an e-commerce store, and the traffic, the engagement that we were getting just immediately, just based off the mobile interaction, was phenomenal. It's one thing I'd also encourage everyone to think about is is kind of using signals that Facebook puts out in terms of products that we roll out, whether it be like link ads, Canvas, all those things are important because that's kind of what is just new in the system. It's going to get priority in terms of like the way that users engage with it because it's new. I think it's just one of those things that it converts really well, especially early on.
So let's go back to lookalikes. We haven't really talked about it too much, and I personally think it's one of the most powerful functions we have within the platform. So I'd love to just hear kind of Mark Nakat's opinion from seeing lookalike campaigns on the Facebook side, and then Jason, Alex, how you guys have been utilizing lookalikes and why they are so important and so powerful.
Yeah, and just to, I guess, level set on lookalikes, because I don't think we did that, is if you have some customer information, you have a bunch of email addresses or phone numbers about people that you've sold to in the past, you can upload that into the system, and within your account, you just have access to this group. So it gets passed through in a very secure way, and the group's only accessible to you. And a couple of years ago, we came up with this lookalike modeling where it essentially, it looks in that group and compares those people to everybody else on Facebook and tries to figure out what attributes make that group similar to each other. Pulls out those attributes, whatever they may be, whether it's like a demographic thing or a behavior on Facebook thing, and then finds all the other people on Facebook that are similar to those users. So it's this really powerful thing. And what's cool about it is with the amount of advertisers on the platform now, which is like 4 million plus 5 million, everybody is using a lot of the stock targeting and kind of competing with each other, and it increases the prices of that stock targeting. But if you take this custom approach and you bring your own data to the table, you can then kind of create this very unique thing that no one else has access to. So when we're starting to work with people for the first time, we try to figure out what unique pieces of data they might have on their end from a CRM perspective, and then how we can bring that into the system. And you really don't need that much. It works much better if you have smaller groups that you upload, because then we do a better job of figuring out what makes those people similar. And even from, let's say, if you had like 5,000 emails that we could match, you can then very easily create audiences on Facebook that are 5 million, 10 million, 20 million people in size. And then combine that with some of our other modeling around, who are the most likely people to convert within that group? And it creates this like really kind of powerful system that almost feeds on itself.
We recently rolled out something in terms of international lookalikes as well. That's been extremely powerful for helping customers find people across the world. So if you're looking at scaling campaigns across other regions, other geographical areas, it's extremely powerful. And like Mark said, just using a small amount of customer data or something that you already have in your system is going to help you, be able to target extremely high value people across the world.
Yeah, leveraging the best converters and best users and highest value people that you see. So if you're selling your product and you have the cart values that are wildly higher than big discrepancy there. Taking like the people who have the best cart values, who are your most valuable users, and modeling the audience off of those people is going to get you more along the lines of what you want. And then making sure that those audiences are newer too. So you're not using a customer from 3 years ago, but you're using somebody from maybe the last month or two.
Right. We try to make our look like. Excuse me. We try to make our lookalikes built off of data in the last 30 to 60 days, always high quality data. So same thing, if you have an age demographic that is outperforming everything, instead of using Facebook age segmentation, let's say 45 to 60 year olds are converting really well, I'll segment my data, my email list, pull out all the 45 to 60 year olds, and then I'll take those email addresses and build that custom audience inside of Facebook and build a lookalike off of that. Sometimes when you do the hyper-targeting inside of Facebook, your costs come up a little bit, and so utilizing a lookalike strategically like that and building off of that is a good way to kind of game the system to still keep your costs down, but still build a lookalike that's going to be hyper-relevant to what you're doing. Same thing for all metrics. We use credit score a lot. We use a lot of different attributes of various users. So if you're databasing any type of data from anything that you're collecting, you can build a foundation for a strong lookalike based on what you really want to accomplish with your campaign.
Yeah, our creative strategists also like to use the Audience Insights tool based on the lookalike audiences that we upload. So I think the Audience Insights tool is, how old is that? Not that pretty new-ish?
Yeah, within the last year or two.
Yeah. If you're not yet leveraging that, I mean, it can tell you a lot about if you don't have, say, it's not your offer, your campaign that you're running, and you're getting it from an advertiser, and the advertiser gives you all this data, but you don't really know much about it. Leveraging the audience insights tool to be able to look at that data and say, who are these people? What do they care about? Can tell you a lot about what kind of creative to be able to drive to be able to best convert with them.
Great. Well, we talked a lot about success on Facebook and how to get there and different strategies. I'd like to change it up a little bit and talk about, I would like everyone to answer this question for Niket and Niket and Mark at Facebook or not at Facebook. What was everyone's hardest day in digital marketing, and what did you do to overcome that issue?
Hardest day, probably where we, as Facebook's an evolving platform, and they continue to add users and continue to grow and continue to do what's in the best interest of those users. If there's like a shift in like what Facebook finds acceptable from a policy perspective, and then running up against that, especially when you have a large campaign, that can be a challenging day. And there's different ways that people can respond to that. But obviously, we believe in the direction that Facebook's going to be able to solve challenges like that, to be able to keep people higher, more engaged, make better quality users to be able to have higher quality traffic. Working through those challenges was really valuable for us.
Well, it's a hardcore question. I think.
Hey, we just want to be transparent here. That's part of our mission.
I think, I guess career-wise, I was living in Krakow, Poland, maybe 3 years ago, and I had a shop. We had a content ARB shop, a bunch of content sites. The largest ones doing around 1 million uniques a day, or not a day, 1 million uniques a month. So not too crazy, but quite a few sites. And content ARB is a game where you're really utilizing ad placements and trying to get a low revenue per user. Some of our advertisers ended up backing out. I had to close down the shop. That was a pretty tough one. But stuck with it, stayed in the game, really honed in, really worked on Facebook, and really built a brand new business and have taken it to another level. So that was tough, but it only inspired me to keep on working and kind of get to where we are now.
Yeah, one of my toughest days was definitely probably Jason's toughest day as well, which is having a call with him, being like, it's just whatever we're doing is might not work, and we looked at it as an opportunity to figure out, what can we do from here? How can we build a better relationship with our compliance team? And Jason and the Strawhouse team kind of took that as an opportunity to build just campaigns with us, and it's been successful for them. So negative to a positive.
Yeah, I was doing some media buying in New York 8 or 9 years ago, some smaller agencies, and it was AdWords stuff, but I thought I was pretty smart with the automation, so I would just set up all these bid rules and then take 2-hour lunches or whatever. And then one day I didn't set them so good, and I lost a lot of money. They were unhappy with me.
Yeah, I know it's a struggle a lot, especially as our platform evolves and gets more complex and more expensive. So I thought it'd be a good kind of in-your-face topic to cover, and appreciate the transparency from all you guys. So turn it back around to some more positive stuff. This question's for everyone. Why do you consider Facebook such an important platform for traffic? And why are you making the investment day to day to drive your business through our platform?
Facebook's the ultimate native advertising platform. You're sending a message to somebody in between, posts of their friends, pictures of their kids, and other kinds of companies or interests that they have that they hold really closely. And then being able to have, a window into somebody's life where they're, if you look from a sales perspective, when if you're selling something to somebody personally, establish good rapport. People have this kind of wall up where they're not receptive to being sold. Just being on Facebook generally takes away that kind of wall, so people are more receptive to the messages that are coming in there. That's a big thing for us.
Right. I think that the accuracy of data in Facebook period is bar none. Nothing is as accurate as Facebook. People are logging in. People are active on their phone. You know what their user behavior is. You can basically target them and utilize multiple touch points about them. That's an amazing thing. And the ability to, on a native level, the ability to create a direct response campaign, but that also has a branding component to it. I mean, being able to utilize advertising on that is the new way of advertising. You know, being able to create a brand, but also create that direct response. And Facebook is the primary place to be able to do that. A lot of companies are getting to that level, which is fantastic. But being able to do that, you know, since when the platform opened ads in 2008, it's kind of been incredible, you know.
I think a good illustration of that is if anybody follows LA2 or L2, and you look at how much of the new ad revenue budget that came in 2016 that was allocated between Facebook and Google took like 105% of the new money. And you're like, well, how do they take 105%? And it's, you know, everyone else is hemorrhaging money. It's all moving towards these kinds of platforms.
Mark, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think the company line is targeted, personalized reach or something like this, but it's really true. Everybody is really unique, but we're collecting more and more data on everybody who uses the platform over time. So in that kind of split second, we can figure out, are they likely to convert on this ad based on both their historical Facebook activity or recent Facebook activity? And down to a really, really nuanced way if you're using some of our more sophisticated models appropriately with lookalikes and website conversions and stuff like that. And yeah, we've just seen over the last maybe 4 or 5 years people that were, you know, doing nothing on Facebook or their whole business was display, and Google now it's maybe 70% Facebook, and they want to be doing even more.
Yeah, I think you guys kind of all said it, but one of the most exciting things is that it is a people-based platform. We have real people with real information that they've actually input into the system. It just makes targeting that much easier. We're not guessing based off pixels or cookie data or anything like that. We're targeting real people, real individuals. That's just why it's such a powerful tool.
Great. I'd love for Alex and Jason to take a stab at this one. I get a lot of feedback that it can be difficult to work with Facebook over the years. I would love your experience in full transparency, how it's been to work with your teams, utilizing the platform, full transparency, anything negative you've experienced, like, we want to hear it.
Right. I've had my fair share of Facebook accounts getting banned, shut down, ads getting shut down. My original ad account is still linked to my personal Facebook page, and it's still flagged, which is funny. But and back in the day, if that happened to your account, your Facebook account would actually get shut down. I don't know if you guys remember that, but it sucks because like your actual Facebook page gets shut down, your personal Facebook page. But it's not like that anymore. But I think that through the years, what we really built on is like figuring out how to work with Facebook, and it's always changing. So, you know, being able to run fully compliant is a tough thing to do, and tiptoeing that line is a very tough thing to do. But being really diligent about, you know, not using link baity type pictures, not using link baity text, not overselling your product, and being very direct. It's something that we're constantly working at, because as good marketers, we should be able to sell a product without using that kind of stuff, I think. And so we're always working with that language, and Facebook has been really good. Even before working with Maria and working with this team, I think that working with the Facebook policy team or the SMB team, like the guys in Austin, they've always been really good about really helping with how to position your stuff, how to really market your products so that way it's fully compliant. And I think I encourage everybody to really get away from what I call, like, I guess, an affiliate mindset where you're just trying to do that quick sale and get that quick conversion, and really build for longevity. And if you're working within the system, you can build for scale, and that's ideal. You don't want accounts getting shut down. You want to continue to really build upon what your business is, and that's kind of how we do it.
Yeah, I mean, the gross dollars at the end of the day, I think, is what everybody really cares about. And you know, you maybe not have the highest ROI with some kind of really aggressive imagery and text, but going with something that's going to maybe be a little more stable, where the negative feedback scores aren't quite as high, or the positive feedback scores are higher, and then you'll be able to scale out and just make it bigger and bigger, and the gross dollars are better. As far as difficulties with us, I mean, obviously, the previous business I had was, I would say, a less than compliant company, and we advertised on Facebook in a way where we weren't working with Facebook, and so making a decision to kind of modify that business and come to Facebook and say, hey, this is what we're doing. These are the things that we want to do. How can you help us get there? And they've been a tremendous partner for us to be able to scale our business, help us focus on compliancy and being able to understand better, what to do on the platform, how we can be able to, achieve similar results and better scale with similar kinds of products, but just being better marketers and marketing them in a way that, resonate with people and people don't get, mad about. I mean, the return's not as higher, but the dollars are better than they've ever been. Right. And, Niket and his team in Toronto have been just instrumental in doing that for us.
I mean, be original, right? Just because you see an ad in your newsfeed and it looks aggressive, I mean, don't look at that and say, oh, they're running it, I can run it. Be original, work within the system. It only makes sense to work within the system. Really, really look at those ad guidelines and understand them. If you guys, have questions about them, I'll gladly, tell you my opinion on what's compliant and what's not. I don't know, it's not a Facebook opinion, but I think I have a pretty good pulse on it. But at the end of the day, just be original and work within the system. There's billions of dollars being spent on this platform. If you can work within the system and have an ad account that runs for a long time and have a product that runs forever, you have a business, you don't have a short-term win, $1 million today, $10 million in the future, right?
Exactly, cool. Great. And Niket, what are we doing to help advertisers as we grow and scale and get them the support we need?
Yeah, a lot of it's a lot in the near future. A lot of it, and especially in this space, in the affiliate space, it's been an understanding and for us in education, moment to understand this industry a little bit better. This is probably the first time that we've been at this summit specifically speaking, and you've seen a lot more of it recently. It's just a lot of it's going to be education. So we're going to understand what it is that marketers in this space need. We're going to come up with better content, better training guidelines specific for the performance space. We have a lot of great training solutions already. So if any of your team is looking to buy on Facebook, we've got a great tool right now called Facebook Blueprint. You can log on and everyone can go through it. It's a certification course, and they go through all of the 101, 201 of Facebook buying. From there, we're going to create new extensions to that. That's going to be very specific, again, to how you scale. So we'd love for everyone to be able to go from $100 a day to $5,000 to $10,000. And what we're going to do is build the processes and tools to allow you to be able to do that.
Awesome. So I have one last question, but I would love some audience questions. So you can start lining up at the center mic. I'll ask the final one. Please feel free to ask anything. We're open and transparent, as is our mission. So this question's for everyone on the panel. If you could give just one piece of advice of how to be successful on Facebook, what would that be?
Test, I guess, and that's something we've covered already, but really just testing as much as you can and throwing everything at the wall and then iterating and then refining. That's how you build a successful, compliant, scaled up campaign. I don't think there's any other real way to do that.
Yeah, use Facebook pixels and use lookalikes. It's gonna increase your business tenfold.
Yeah, and if you're building a team around this, you're really only as good as the people at the controls, and you need people whose jobs aren't split between 4 other platforms. This I think it needs to be a full-time thing, and if you get really good people doing it, just take care of them because they end up being in high demand. Yeah,
I think that's a good. We have 10 media buyers, and they are platform specific. So people specialize not in a vertical, but on a platform.
I just don't build a campaign for a click, build a campaign for a customer. And I think that mindset will definitely help you in terms of just scaling on the platform.
Excellent. Any questions from the audience? Oh, it looks like they took the mic away.
You mentioned just now specifically working with someone who specializes in just Facebook. That's kind of my question. With so many platforms, you can't bring in that many people. We use an agency currently, but I'm not sure how well versed they are in Facebook versus other platforms. So how do you differentiate? Has anyone published or put out a list of here are the 20 questions you want to ask someone who's doing your Facebook marketing to see if they know their shit?
I think me and Alex should probably work on that.
Yeah.
I haven't seen anything like that, but I think that's a good idea to put that together. Other than that, obviously you can tell by I think, by how good the results are that you're seeing. These are the results that you're seeing. Are they in line with your expectations? It's funny because I'll talk to people. I run an agency, so I talk to people and they're like, "Oh, we're very happy with our Facebook advertising." And I'm like, "Well, okay, what are you selling? What's your average card value? What are your average cost per acquisition? And what scale are you running at?" And then they'll be in a position where they maybe think that they're doing everything they can, and everything's right, and then in my estimation, it won't be. So. Really being critical, and then becoming well informed enough to be able to ask better questions, and we'll start a blog.
Right, and if that, that agency is working for you, so be in a position where you want your agency to be able to educate you. You want them to tell you exactly what's going on and tell you how the campaign's performing. And if they're not going to do that, that level of transparency is what I always would want from an agency. And if they're not going to be able to provide that for you, I think that that might be something like a red flag.
Yeah, and from the Facebook side, we have a set of criteria of characteristics you need to check kind of these boxes on for an advertiser that we would want to work with. So highly sophisticated media buyers, implementing the pixel, understand your CRM data with lookalikes. Mark, let me know if I'm missing any, but it's a series of several of these that is something we look at to know that you will be successful on the platform, and we're happy to share kind of our guidelines so you can think the same way.
Do you believe it's the same agency that does the social media as well as the media buying on Facebook, or are they different players?
I'd say they're very different things. So if you're looking to achieve social engagement and you're looking to manage your social profiles, that's a very different business than an acquisition-driven business.
It also matters like how much that agency is vested in your business and your best interest. I think when you focus on social engagement instead of realistic KPIs, like there's ways to do great campaigns that are going to get you tons of engagement, tons of reach on the platform. And if you're really looking for conversions or CPAs, then there's a way to structure the agreement so that they're looking at your best interest.
That's key. That's why obviously I personally believe that, because our company only gets paid when we drive results. And I don't think every company needs to be like that, obviously. There's value in different kinds of relationships, but really making sure that if you're running on a percentage of spend agreement with an agency, that you're getting reports back to know exactly what your different KPIs are. And then tracking those and then holding them to task when they fall out of alignment with your expectations.
Hi, can you tell me best practices for updating and refreshing custom audiences?
Sure. For the most part, my team will, if we can update with enough data, we try to update our lists, our custom audience list, maybe every 14 to 30 days. That's pretty much my standard best practice for me internally. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
that's pretty much it.
It was mentioned earlier that DR video is performing. Is that a function of that being a particular tactic that a lot of marketers haven't spent time in DR video? Is that indicative of some sort of user shift to video? Curious what, and then finally, what advice would you give to somebody that wants to start testing DR video?
I think it's just a richer medium. So, a lot of people, particularly in DR, focus on like advertorial type pages or vlogs or whatever you want to call them as you link out from Facebook to go into some middle place before you go to a landing page or a product sale page. And, leveraging video allows you to get that kind of information into the user and then remove that middle step so you're not having that fall off and you're not paying for traffic that you're not getting valuable users for. So that's where I see a big value. That's where we leverage that.
Yeah, and I think touching on what you're asking, like there's a paradigm shift. Video is something that we used to avoid like the plague, maybe even a year ago, 2 years ago. Now it's a place where animated GIFs and videos that don't have sound and subtitles are something that's totally acceptable, and people will sit there and watch videos. And so it's becoming part of the cultural norm and being part of the DR space and moving in that direction only makes sense as we kind of develop into a more media consuming society, a visual media consuming society.
I think just to broaden on that, like Alex is saying, with the advent of 5G coming up here in the next year or two, whenever that's happening, like 4G LTE technology really allowed mobile to be streamed and consumed on mobile devices, video to be consumed on mobile devices, and 5G is going to probably accelerate that paradigm and change that in a way that we haven't been able to predict yet.
Okay, so you had asked earlier about bad business experiences. Last year, second half of last year, I got my Facebook account up to where they contacted me and said, "Hey, now you've got a rep. I spent several $100,000 in that quarter or whatever it was. I spent all my time with my rep. He's saying, 'How can I help?' He's like, 'I just want to make sure I'm compliant. Want to make sure I'm compliant. Want to make sure I'm compliant.' Yeah, everything's fine." Until I wake up first one day a month ago, and my account's been disabled for policy violations. That it took me 3 weeks just to figure out what the policy violations were. So my question is, you guys talk about working with compliance reps and everything, and I know that at some point you get big enough to have that, but so now I'm kind of starting back from zero again. How do I actually get a compliance rep? How do I get somebody at Facebook who I can work with where I want to be compliant? Turns out the stuff that I was disabled for was just what I would consider silly stuff that if anybody would have just said, "Hey, do this instead of this," I would have done it. I wanted to do that. I really was begging my rep to tell me those things. So how do we actually get to that point where we can work with somebody who's willing to do stuff with us and who's willing to help us out on those things? Because I've experienced, for all that I want to love Facebook, and I do love Facebook. I spend a lot of money on Facebook. But how do I get past that kind of black hole of no response, no nothing, until it's always the bad news when I finally get communication from Facebook? And it's really frustrating.
Yeah, that's part of like the education that we talked about earlier for us internally, is also understanding this space a lot more. One of the reasons why, like we talked about it being a people-based platform. So, what is compliant on Google or native or other platforms may not be compliant on Facebook because we're targeting real individuals. So it's an understanding from that as a marketer, and then also for us as Facebook, understanding better of like how we can provide better guidelines of how to run performance campaigns like that at scale. So I think you'll see a lot more support coming over this year that's going to help you and other partners that are trying to drive scale on the platform. For that thing specifically, there's so much traffic going through the platform at once that when you are, and a lot of it, let's be honest, some of it's not completely compliant. These guys spoke openly about it. When you're on the other side, when you're on the compliance team and you're looking at 100 ads an hour and 99 of them are extremely bad, you're going to shut down yours just because it kind of looks like that. So what we really push advertisers to do is step 5-10 feet in front of that line. Like don't push up against that compliance line. Don't try to just do the bare minimum to get by, because you're just going to get lumped into that same bucket. What you need to do is like make it, the landing page, the quality of the landing page, the quality of the ads on Facebook, all that stuff matters. And the more you can make it look better and more compliant and just better quality of images, is going to make you stand apart from that, and you hopefully don't get into that again.
Yeah, making it better and making it less like everything that we all know is very bad, because there's, I don't know, like it's not a blindness, but like it's pattern recognition where there's humans there, right? So it's just like, yep. It's, I think there's not a whole lot of real detail that goes involved with that assessment sometimes, and it's kind of a knee-jerk reaction, and unfortunately it will have like serious business implications, like in your case. And like I've experienced it definitely, but I know that like by us doing what Nikita's mentioned, we just make everything look a lot better and look different. And we're a direct response shop. We have obvious tactics that we use, but differentiating and really just taking the time to innovate and market better has dramatically lessened. We use banned accounts as a KPI, and we're a big shop. We have run a lot of accounts, but we've seen that fall off to a point where maybe, I don't know if I should like the numbers, but we have like, say there would be a point where there'd be we've been able to reduce our account ban over quarter by quarter by about 80% every quarter. over the last 3 quarters.
Yeah, and we're working to roll out a better education system for affiliates and lead gen in particular, which should ship sometime this year, hopefully this quarter.
Yeah, one of my biggest kind of pain points with Facebook is attribution of orders for e-commerce. A lot of the other ad platforms we work with, we're able to actually export what orders they're claiming as sales, and that's kind of locked down within Facebook. What recommendations do you guys have for kind of the attribution side of it to help minimize overlap?
I think we're at time. Do I have time to answer it, or?
Yeah.
Okay. There's something we're working on now as a beta that's going to help with this a lot. So because we can track people across devices, we can tell every single ad they saw for a specific conversion, and give that information back to you. Whether they started on mobile, went to desktop later, went on another computer at home, we have all that. And we're working on something where you're going to be able to, if you have an analytics system on your end and you're tracking individual conversions and the other attribution paths that went into that, you can kind of combine that and merge it with our information about our own attribution paths, and you'll be able to get this kind of whole new clean view that'll show you, it'll kind of like take this people-based stuff and real cross-device and pair it with the cookie-based stuff by time. And I think it's going to really solve a lot of these issues. So like later this year, that's happening.
Yeah, and Alex, you go.
Well, I mean, I think that one of the biggest problems running e-commerce with multiple channels is that if you're using something like Google Analytics and you're looking at your back end, Google will give a lot more credit to themselves versus Facebook giving, when you go into Facebook, Facebook gives a lot more credit to themselves. What ends up actually happening is that a lot of the refers get stripped. If you're putting UTM sources inside of Facebook, they'll actually get stripped, and Google will just end up sourcing that traffic as their own traffic. So that's a lot of trouble that we have. But what we like to do is based on ad dollars. I know it's not science, but it's way more directional. Based on spend, if you see CPAs coming down overall on your e-commerce stuff, you can attribute ideally that it's coming from Facebook. But I'm sure that's the game that you're kind of playing with right now. So 2017 is supposed to be the year of attribution. But I think I've heard that multiple times for like the last 5 years.
This year for sure.
We're working on it. And I thank everyone for coming out today. I thank the panel. If you ever have any questions, concerns, feel free to email performance@fb.com. That alias goes to my entire team. And we will do our best to get back to you within a week or so based on whatever issue you might be having. Thanks again, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.